Hey guys, tonight we slip into muddy boots of a medieval peasant, where every dawn feels like a gamble with death. Picture this. You're trudging through a misty village, the air thick with wood smoke and the faint stench of decay. Crows caw from crooked rooftops, and somewhere a bell tolls, like it's warning you of the plague creeping closer. This isn't some cozy fantasy. You're knee-deep in a world where survival's a long shot. Spoiler. You probably won't survive this, but let's see how far you get. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your location and local time. I'm curious where you're drifting off from tonight. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake to a world where the Black Death isn't just a history lesson. It's your reality. It's 1348, and whispers of a sickness from far-off lands have reached your hamlet. You hear it first from a peddler, his eyes wide as he describes entire towns rotting away. By spring, the plague's here, and it's not subtle. Your neighbor's wife coughs blood, her skin blooming with dark, egg-sized boils. You pass their hut, and the smell hits you, sour like milk gone bad, mixed with something sharper. The village square, once loud with barter and gossip, is half empty. Bodies pile up faster than the priest can mutter prayers. The Black Death, historians say, wiped out maybe a third to half of Europe's population, millions gone in a few years. That's the mainstream fact, cold and hard. But here's a quirky tidbit. Some folks thought cats carried the plague, so they slaughtered them, not knowing rats, the real culprits, were scurrying free. Historians still argue whether the plague was just bubonic or a nastier mix of diseases, like pneumonic, which could kill you in days. Either way, you're not waiting for answers. You're dodging death. You learn fast to avoid the sick. You steer clear the alehouse where men huddle, coughing into their mugs. You notice the wealthier folk fleeing to their countryside manors. But you're stuck, tied to this land by a lord who doesn't care if you live or die. You try old tricks. A sprig of rosemary tucked in your shirt, supposed to ward off the bad air. It smells nice, but deep down, you know it's as useful as a straw hat in a blizzard. You hear bonfires lit to cleanse a miasma, and you toss in a few sticks, hoping it helps. It doesn't. Your days are a blur of fear and labor. You still the Lord your week's work, plowing his fields while your own barley patch wilts. You sneak a glance at the horizon, wondering if you could run. But where to? Every village has its own graveyard growing. You hear of a monk who smeared himself with goose fat and lived. Sounds like a slippery lie, but you're desperate enough to consider it. You laugh darkly, imagining yourself waddling like a greased pig to escape death. Not exactly heroic. The kids in the village are your weak spot. Little Agnes, who used to chase chickens with a stick, now lies pale in her mother's arms. You slip her family a bit of bread, though your own stomach's growling. You tell yourself it's charity, but really it's guilt. You're still breathing, and they might not be tomorrow. You overhear the old women muttering about the end of days, and you wonder if they're right. The church bells keep ringing, but God feels far off. By night, you huddle in your one-room hut, the straw roof leaking, the fire spitting smoke. You chew on a crust of rye bread, hard as stone, and try to ignore the rats scratching in the dark. You're not just fighting the plague, you're fighting despair. You whisper a prayer, half expecting no one's listening, and pull your thin blanket tighter. Tomorrow's another roll of the dice, and you're still in the game. For now, you're still here, somehow, dodging the Black Death's bony fingers. The village feels like a ghost playground, but you're learning to outsmart this invisible killer. You've seen what happens to those who don't adapt. Graves are proof enough. Every day, you tweak your survival game, picking up tricks from the old, the desperate, and the lucky. It's not pretty, but it's keeping you alive. You start with the basics. Distance. You avoid the marketplace, where folks still barter turnips and gossip. They're breath too close. You've heard the plague travels in crowds, so you stick to open fields, where the wind might sweep away the bad air. A mainstream fact backs you up. Medieval records show villages that isolated themselves often fared better. You're not a scholar, but you feel in your gut, stay away, stay alive. You even shoo the kids from playing near the churchyard, where the dead are stacked like firewood. It's grim, but you're not taking chances. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some villagers swear by drinking vinegar to purify their blood. You try it, gagging on the sour burn, and wonder if it's just punishment for being hopeful. It's probably nonsense, but you're not above trying anything once. Historians still argue whether these home remedies did any good or just made folks feel briefly in control. You get it. Control's all you got. You pick up smarter habits. You notice the miller's wife, who's still kicking, washes her hands raw with ash and water. You copy her, scrubbing until your knuckles sting. You don't know why it works. Germ theory centuries away. But you're not arguing with results. You also start boiling your water, a trick you heard from a traveling tinker. It tastes flat, but you're not coughing blood, so you keep at it. You laugh quietly, thinking of the tinker's sales pitch. Boil it, or join the choir invisible. Not a bad line. The village has its own rules now. The elders, those leathery survivors, declare no one enters or leaves without a week's wait in a field hut. You help build one, piling straw for walls, and feel a flicker of pride. It's not much, but it's yours. You also join the night watch, patrolling with a stick to scare off strangers. One night, you spot a merchant sneaking in, his cart creaking. You shout him away, heart pounding. He curses, but you're not budging. You're protecting your own. Food's another puzzle. With half the village sick or gone, fields lie unplowed. You team up with a few neighbors to harvest what's left, stunted wheat and a few stringy carrots. You share the haul, knowing you'll need their help tomorrow. You also start hiding a little grain in a clay pot under your floor. It's not stealing, you tell yourself. It's insurance. You smirk. Imagine the Lord's face if he knew you were stashing his precious tithe. Good luck finding it, you greedy toad. You lean on old knowledge, too. Your gran taught you about herbs, and you're out at dawn picking nettles and yarrow. You brew them into a bitter tea, hoping it strengthens you. It's no miracle, but it's something. You also try a trick from a shepherd. Rub garlic on your shoes to keep sickness at bay. It smells like a demon's armpit, but you're still standing. So who's laughing now? The community's your backbone. You trade tips with the baker, who's rigged a cloth mask over his face. It looks ridiculous, like he's robbing his own oven, but he hasn't caught the plague. You make one, too, tying it tight and breathing through the musty weave. You share a quiet nod with him, a pact of survivors. You're not friends, but you're in this together. By night, you lie awake, the wind rattling your hut's walls. You think of those you've lost, friends, kin, even the annoying guy who overcharged for ale. You push it down, focusing on tomorrow's tasks. Check the quarantine hut, boil water, hide more grain. You're not just surviving, you're fighting. You whisper to yourself, one more day, and it feels like a vow. The plague's still out there, but you're not its next victim. Not yet. You've outwitted the plague so far, but now a new beast bares its teeth. Famine. The fields, already scarred by disease, are yielding less than ever. Your stomach's a hollow knot, and every step feels heavier, like you're dragging a ghost chain. You're not just fighting to stay healthy. You're fighting to eat. The harvest was a disaster. Spring rains turned the soil to muck, and with half the village dead or too weak to work, most crops rotted before they ripened. You stand in your patch, staring at stunted barley stalks, barely knee-high. A mainstream fact hits hard. Famines in the 14th century could cut populations by a fifth in bad years, sometimes more. You feel that statistic in your bones. Your neighbor, a wiry man named Tom, just buried his youngest. Hunger made her too frail to fight a fever. You avoid his eyes, afraid you'll see your own future. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some peasants ate famine bread, mixing ground bark or even clay with the last scraps of flour. You haven't sunk that low yet, but you're eyeing the oak trees, wondering how bad it tastes. Historians still argue whether famine killed more by starvation or by weakening folks for diseases like dysentery. Either way, you're not picky about the cause. You just want to avoid the grave. You start rationing what little you have. Your daily meal's a palm-sized chunk of rye bread, so coarse it scrapes your throat, and a thin soup of boiled nettles. You chew slowly, tricking your stomach into thinking it's full. You laugh bitterly, imagining telling your old self, one day, you'll savor weeds like they're roast pork. Life's got a cruel sense of humor. You get creative. You sneak into the Lord's forest. Not legally yours, but hunger doesn't care about laws. You dig for roots, wild leeks, anything edible. You find a patch of sorrel, tart but filling, and stuff your sack. A squirrel darts by, and you eye it, wondering if you're fast enough to catch it. You're not, yet. You mutter a half-joke to yourself. Keep running. Furry stew, your day's coming. The village pulls together, sort of. You trade a handful of your sorrel for a neighbor's dried fish. Small as your thumb, but better than nothing. You hear folks hoarding, though. Old Meg, who hides her grain and claims she's starving. You don't trust her, but you can't blame her. You got your own secret stash, that clay pot on the floor, now down to a fistful of barley. You check it nightly, like a dragon guarding gold. You try old tricks your gran swore by. She said to chew parsley to dull hunger pangs. You find some, nibbling the bitter leaves, but your stomach's not fooled. It growls like a chained dog. You also hear of a monk who fasted for weeks, claiming it purified the soul. You're not that holy, but you skip meals to stretch your food, whispering, just one more day. It's less prayer, more stubbornness. The Lord's no help. He still demands his tithe, grain you can't spare. You see his bailiff, a sour man with a whip, eyeing your hut. You hide your stash deeper, cursing under your breath. You joke darkly to yourself, if famine doesn't get me, his greed will. You're not wrong. You lean on the seasons, too. Autumn's here, and you scour hedgerows for blackberries. Your fingers stain purple. You dry what you can't eat, string them on thread like tiny, shriveled jewels. You also find a few mushrooms, but you're cautious. Gran warn the ones that'll make you see demons before they kill you. You stick to the safe ones, earthy and tough, and boil them into a gritty stew. By night, you huddle by your fire, the wind sneaking through your hut's cracks. You sip your nettle soup, savoring its faint warmth. You think of Tom's kid, of Meg's lies, of the Lord's bailiff. Hunger's a thief, stealing your strength, your hope. But you're still here, plotting your next meal, your next move. You clench your jaw and whisper, not today. Famine. You're not giving up. You're still clinging to life, outsmarting famine slow, gnawing claws. The hunger's a constant ache now, like a guest who won't leave, but you're not ready to surrender. You've learned to stretch every crumb, to see food where others see nothing. Your days are a scavenger's hustle, part farmer, part forager, all survivor. You wake at dawn, your breath visible in the chilly air. Your plot's a sad sight, a few turnips, small as pebbles, and some wilted cabbage leaves. You pull them up, brushing off the dirt like it's treasure. A mainstream fact grounds you. Medieval peasants often survived on less than 2,000 calories a day, sometimes half that in lean times. You're living it, your ribs starting to show through your tunic. You tighten your belt, not for style, but to quiet your stomach's complaints. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some peasants ate pottage, a mush of whatever they could find, grains, weeds, even old bones boiled soft. You're no stranger to it now, stirring a pot of barley, nettles, and a fish head you bartered for. It's not gourmet, but you slurp it down, grinning like you've cheated death again. Historians still argue whether pottage was nutritious or just desperation in a bowl. You don't care. It's keeping you upright. You hit the fields early, hoe in hand. Your barley's struggling, but you weed and water it like it's your child. You talk to it, half joking. Grow, you lazy stalk, or we're both done for. It's silly, but it keeps you sane. You also tend a tiny herb patch, mint and thyme, Gran's favorites. They add flavor to your pottage, making it less like eating sadness. Foraging's your real lifeline. You slip into the Lord's forest again, heart pounding at every snapped twig. Poaching's a whipping offense, but so starving. You find wild garlic. Its sharp scent a small victory. You also spot a hazel bush. Its nuts still green, but edible. You crack one open, savoring the milky bite. You laugh quietly, thinking of the Lord's fat hogs, that they're eating better than you. Enjoy your slop, Piggies, you mutter. You trade when you can. The blacksmith's widow has a knack for snaring rabbits. You swap her some garlic for a skinny leg. It's tough, but you roast it over your fire, the smell making your mouth water. You eat slowly, saving the bones for tomorrow's pottage. You also barter with a neighbor for a handful of dried peas. She eyes your herbs like they're gold, and you strike a deal. You're no merchant, but you're learning fast. Old tricks keep you going. Gran said to soak acorns to leach their bitterness. You try it, grinding them into a gritty flour. It's not bread, but it fills the gap. You also chew fennel seeds to trick your hunger. Another of Gran's tips. It works for an hour, then your stomach's back to growling. You shrug and whisper, "Nice try, fennel." Life's a game of small wins. The village shares what it can. At the weekly gathering, you pool resources. A few onions, some barley, a questionable lump of cheese. You all cook together, a lumpy stew that tastes like hope. You notice old Meg's there, contributing nothing but complaints. You roll your eyes. Some things never change, famine or not. The Lord's shadow looms. His bailiff rides through, demanding extra grain for war taxes. You hand over a pittance, hiding your real stash on the floor. You smirk, imagining him choking on his own greed. Tax that, you leech? You think. It's a risky game, but you're not starving for his wars. By night, you sit by your fire, nibbling a roasted turnip. The stars are out, sharp against the dark. You think of Gran, her stories of lean years survived. You're adding your own chapter now, one. You're not just surviving. You're fighting one meal, one day at a time. You whisper, "Keep going." And it's enough for now. You're still kicking, outfoxing famine's grip, but now you face a different beast. The Lord who rules your world. His manor looms over the village like a vulture, and his demands never stop. Not for plague, not for hunger. You're tied to his land. Your labor is by right, and every step you take feels like it's on his leash. Surviving means navigating his iron rule, without losing what little you have left. You wake to the bailiff's horn, a grating sound that means work for the Lord comes first. Your own fields begging for attention, but you trudge to his domain, acres of wheat you'll never taste. A mainstream fact stings. Feudal lords often claimed up to a third of a peasant's labor, plus tithes and fines. You feel it today, swinging aside under the sun while your stomach growls. The Lord steward watches, hawk-eyed, ready to dock your share for slacking. You keep your head down, but inside, you're cursing his polished boots. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some lords demanded Harriet, a death tax where a family gave their best cow when a tenant died. You heard of a widow who offered a scrawny chicken instead, claiming it was her finest beast. The steward took it, red-faced, and you smirk, wishing you had her nerve. Historians still argue whether lords were always tyrants or just products of a brutal system. You don't care. You just want them off your back. You learn to play the game. You work the Lord's fields, but you're not stupid. You move slow when the steward's not looking, saving your strength for your own plot. You also forget to report a few eggs from your hens, tucking them away for barter. You chuckle, imagining the Lord's face if he knew you were skimming his precious tithe. Eat your scrolls, my lord. You mutter under your breath. The village has its own quiet rebellion. At the alehouse, you overhear whispers of hiding grain or undercounting livestock. You join in, suggesting a trick. Mix chaff with the tithe grain to make it look heavier. It's risky, but the others nod, and you feel a spark of defiance. You're no hero, but you're not a doormat either. You joke with the baker. If the Lord wants my sweat, he can bottle it. He snorts, and for a moment, you're not alone. Fines are the worst. The Lord's court, held in his drafty hall, is a trap. Last week, you were fined a day's wages for letting your pig wander. Never mind, it was starving and broke its pen. You paid in grain, your stash on the floor now dangerously low. You grit your teeth, remembering Gran saying, "Lords don't plow, but they reap." You're starting to hate how right she was. You find small ways to cope. You carve a tiny wooden bird, a secret act of freedom, and hide it in your hut. It's nothing, but it's yours. You also sing old songs while you work, ones the Lord can't tax. The others join in, and the steward glares, but he can't find your voice. You wink at a fellow worker, whispering, "Sing louder, let's haunt him." It's a small win, but it feels good. The church is no escape. The priest, cozy with the Lord, demands his own tithe, your last good cabbage this time. You hand it over, muttering about hypocrites in robes. You still pray, though, kneeling in the chilly chapel, asking for strength. You're not sure if God's listening, but the act steadies you. You think of the rosemary you used to ward off plague. Maybe faiths like that, useless but comforting. By night, you collapse in your hut, the fire low, the air sharp with autumn's bite. You chew a crust of pottage-soaked bread, tallying the day's losses. Labor, grain, dignity. The Lord's rule is a weight, but you're still here, scheming, singing, surviving. You think of that widow's chicken and grin. Maybe you've got a bitter fire. You whisper, "One more day," and pull your blanket tight. The Lord hasn't crushed you yet. You're still dodging the Lord's heavy hand, balancing on a knife's edge to keep what's yours. His greed is a constant shadow, but you're not just a pawn. You're learning to twist the rules, to carve out scraps of freedom. The village buzzes with quiet tricks, and you're picking up every sly move to outwit the manor's grasp. Survival's not just about enduring. It's about being cleverer than the man who thinks he owns you. You start each day with one eye on the Lord's men. The bailiff's out there, tallying your every move, but you've got his number. You work his fields, sure, but you've mastered the art of looking busy while doing less. You drag your hoe, kick up dust, and mutter just loud enough to seem diligent. A mainstream fact grounds is hustle. Medieval peasants often use customary rights to negotiate lighter workloads, claiming ancient traditions to dodge extra labor. You don't know the law, but you know the game. Act obedient, then slip away to tend your own cabbage patch. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some peasants bribe bailiffs with small gifts like a jug of ale or a fat hen to overlook minor infractions. You try it, slipping the bailiff a handful of wild plums you foraged. He grunts, pockets them, and doesn't notice you shorted the grain tithe by a scoop. You smirk, thinking, "Enjoy your fruit, you old goat." Historians still argue whether these bribes soften feudal control or just greased a broken system. You don't care, it bought you a week's peace. You get bolder. You've heard of villagers hiding crops in secret stashes, and you're all in. You bury a sack of turnips in the woods, marking the spot with a notched stick. It's risky. If caught, you'd face a whipping, but starvation's a worse whip. You also lose a lamb when the Lord's men count your flock, claiming it wandered off. It's grazing in a hidden dell, and you plan to butcher it come winter. You chuckle, imagining the steward's face if he knew. Count that, you parchment liquor. You whisper, the village is a gold mine of tricks. At the mill, you learn to mix pebbles into your grain sack to fake its weight. Then you scoop them out before grinding. The miller winks in on the scheme. You swap tips with neighbor who sews extra pockets inside her cloak for smuggling eggs past the bailiff. You try it, tucking away a few apples. It's like being a thief in your own life, and you joke, "If I'm stealing, it's from the Lord's ego." The laugh feels like defiance. You lean on barter to stretch your resources. You trade a bundle of dried mint for a neighbor's spare sickle, better for your secret foraging trips. You also swap stories. A tanner shares how he underreports his hides, claiming wolves got them. You file that away, thinking a wolf might eat your next tithe. You're not friends, but you're allies, bound by the shared goal of outsmarting the manor. Old wisdom helps, too. Gran taught you to mark your tools with a rune, claiming it's bad luck for others to touch them. You scratch one on your spade, and when the bailiff tries to seize it for debts, you spin the tale. He hesitates. Superstition's a powerful ally. You also revive Gran's habit of leaving a small offering at the field's edge, a crust of bread for the spirits. It's less about gods, more about hope, but it steadies your nerves. The Lord's court is a gauntlet. Last time, you're fined for a broken fence you couldn't afford to fix. You paid in labor, hauling stones for his new wall. Now, you spread rumors that the manor as well as cursed, hoping to spook his men from snooping too close to your buried turnips. It's a long shot, but you're desperate. You mutter, drink deep, bailiff, and choke on a ghost. By night, you sit by your fire, the wind howling outside. You nibble a smuggled apple, its tartness a tiny rebellion. You think of the plums, the lamb, the rune, small victories against a giant. You're not free, but you're not broken. You whisper, keep slipping, keep living. And it's a promise to yourself. The Lord's still king, but you're no serf tonight. You're still outwitting the Lord's greedy claws, but now you face a different force. The church, a double-edged blade in your fight to survive. Faith is your anchor, promising hope in a world of plagues and hunger, but it also stings, demanding your loyalty and your last scraps of wealth. You lean on its comfort while dodging its traps, navigating a spiritual maze as tricky as the Lord's manor. You start your day in the village chapel, its stone walls damp and cold. The priest drones about salvation, but you're distracted by the hole in your shoe. You kneel, praying for strength to get through another week, but you can't ignore the church's tithe basket, waiting like a hungry mouth. A mainstream fact hits hard. The medieval church often claimed a tenth of a peasant harvest on top of the Lord's share. You feel it, handing over a sack of barley you scrape together, your stomach twisting as you do. That grain could have fed you for days. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some villagers believe burying a coin near a churchyard tree would buy divine protection. You try it, slipping a bent penny into the dirt under an ancient yew. It's probably nonsense, but you whisper a quick prayer anyway, hoping to bargain with heaven. Historians still argue whether these rituals were heartfelt or just desperate bids for control in a chaotic world. You get it. Anything to feel less helpless. You lean on faith's rituals for solace. Sunday Mass is a rare pause, the chapel's candlelight softening the harsh edges of your life. You sing hymns with the others, your voice rough but earnest, and for a moment you're not alone. You also keep a small cross woven from straw, a gift from Gran, tucked in your pocket. You rub it when fear creeps in, like now, when you hear the plague still lurking in nearby towns. It's not magic, but it's something. The church's demands chafe, though. The priest, with his soft hands and well-fed belly, preaches about charity while eyeing your tithe. Last week, he fined you a hen for missing a holy day. You were too busy digging turnips to starve. You handed it over, muttering under your breath about wolves in robes. You joke darkly to yourself, if heaven's is expensive, I'll take the other place. It's not funny, but it keeps you from screaming. You find ways to push back. You forget to report a few onions in your tithe, claiming a bad harvest. The priest frowns but lets it slide, too busy with wealthier sinners. You also spread a rumor that the church's new bell is cracked, hoping to delay their next collection drive. It's a long shot, but you're not above petty rebellion. You share a smirk with a baker, who's shorted his own tithe. God sees all, you whisper, but maybe he blinks. The village leans on faith, too, but it's not blind. At the harvest festival, you all dance and pray for bounty, but you notice the old women muttering their own charms, older than the church's Latin. You join in, tossing a pinch of salt over your shoulder for luck. It's half pagan, half hope, and you don't care if the priest disapproves. You're hedging your bets. You wrestle with belief itself. The plague, the famine, the Lord's greed. Where's God in all this? You hear of wandering preachers claiming the end is near, and part of you wonders if they're right. But you keep praying, not for miracles, but for grit. You think of that buried penny and chuckle. Hope I didn't pay for nothing. Fate's a gamble, and you're still rolling the dice. By night, you sit in your hut. The fires glow, dancing on the walls. You chew a crust of bread, saved from the tithe by your quick tongue. The cross in your pocket feels warm, a small comfort. You think of the priest, the yew tree, the old women's charms. Faith lifts you up, but it's also a weight. You whisper, keep me steady, half to God, half to yourself. The church can take your soul, not yet. You're still holding on. Faith and cunning keep you afloat, but now you face a new challenge. Staying alive when sickness strikes. The plague shadow lingers, and everyday ailments, fevers, cuts, a nagging cough, can turn deadly. Medieval medicine is a gamble, a mix of hope, guesswork, and outright lunacy. You're no healer, but you're learning to navigate this world of potions and prayers, hoping to patch yourself up without making things worse. You wake with a scratchy throat, a warning you can't ignore. The village healer, a stooped woman with eyes like a crow's, is your first stop. Her hut smells of herbs and something sour, jars of murky liquids lining the walls. She hands you a brew of willow bark and honey, muttering about balancing your humors. A mainstream fact grounds you. Medieval medicine leaned on the theory of four humors: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, black bile, believing illness came from their imbalance. You sip the bitter brew, wincing, unsure if it's helping or just drowning your taste buds. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some healers use unicorn horn powder, really just ground gnarled tusk or bone, to cure everything from fevers to bad luck. You hear of a merchant selling it in the next town, and you roll your eyes. You're poor, not stupid. You stick to the healer's brew, though you half joke to yourself, if this kills me, I'm haunting her first. Historians still argue whether these remedies were mostly placebo or occasionally effective by chance. You just want your throat to stop burning. You try practical fixes. That cough worries you, so you wrap a warm stone in cloth and press it to your chest, a trick Gran swore by. It soothes, and you breathe easier, though you're not sure why. You also clean a cut on your hand, earned from a rusty hoe, with boiled water, remembering the miller's wife and her hand-washing obsession from the plague days. You're no scholar, but you've seen infection turn small wounds deadly. The healer's bag of tricks is a mixed bag. She offers to bleed you, claiming it'll purge bad humors. You've seen it done leeches or a quick knife slice, and folks often look paler, not better. You dodge, saying you'll try her garlic paste instead. You slather it on your neck, stinking like a demon, but hoping it works. You chuckle, muttering, if the cough doesn't kill me, the smell might. The village kids steer clear, and you don't blame them. You lean on village wisdom. 2. The baker swears by chewing raw onion for colds. So you try it, eyes watering as you chomp. It's foul, but your cough eases by nightfall. You also hear of a charm. Tie a red thread around your wrist to ward off fever. You do it, less for magic, more for comfort, like that straw cross you still carry from Gran's days. You're stacking every small advantage, no matter how odd. The church meddles here. 2. The priest pushes holy water, claiming it cures the pious. You sprinkle some on, but you're not holding your breath for miracles. You've seen pious folk die as fast as sinners. The healer, though, blends old ways with new. She mutters a prayer while pressing herbs to your skin. You don't argue. If God and garlic both help, you're not picky. Riskier cures float around. A traveling barber surgeon offers to drill a hole in your skull if the cough turns to brain fever. You back away, heart pounding. You've heard of trepanning, and you're not letting anyone crack your head like a walnut. You joke to yourself, my brain's empty, but I'd like to keep it. Desperation breeds wild ideas, and you're sticking to the safer ones. By night, you huddle in your hut, the fire crackling. You sip more of the healer's brew, its warmth settling your chest. You think of the unicorn horn, the red thread, the barber's drill. Medicine's a maze, half help, half harm. You're still breathing, though, and that's enough. You whisper, stay strong, rubbing Gran's cross. Tomorrow's another day to dodge death's clumsy swing. You're still patching yourself together, dodging the healer's wilder cures. But now winter slams into your world like a fist. The air bites, the ground hardens, and your hut feels like a sieve letting in every icy draft. Surviving the cold is a battle of wits and willpower, with scarce fuel and thinner rations testing your grit. You're not just fighting hunger or lords now. You're wrestling nature itself, and it plays dirty. You wake to frost on your blanket, your breath a white puff in the dim light. The fire's down to embers, and your woodpile's pitiful, a few sticks and some damp branches you scavenged. A mainstream fact chills you. Medieval winters could drop temperatures below freezing for months, and peasants often burned dung or straw. When wood ran out, you're not there yet, but you're eyeing the old straw mat in the corner, wondering how it'd burn. Your fingers are stiff, and every task, fetching water, feeding the hens, feels like wading through mud. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some villagers slept with their livestock to share body heat, turning their huts into barnyards. You've got two scrawny hens, and you're tempted to let them roost by your pallet. You laugh, muttering, "Come on, ladies, warm me up, but no pecking." It's half joke, half plan. Historians still argue whether these shared sleeping arrangements spread disease or save lives by keeping folks from freezing. You just want to feel your toes again. You ration your fuel like a miser. You only light the fire at night, huddling close to stretch each twig's warmth. During the day, you layer every scrap of cloth, your cloak, a patch blanket, even a sack tied around your legs. You move constantly, chopping wood or mending fences, to keep your blood flowing. You remember Gran's trick. Rub your hands with fat from a boiled fish bone to seal in heat. It smells awful, but it works, and you're not picky. Food's tighter now. Your buried turnips are frozen solid, and your barley stash is down to a handful. You make pottage with what's left, grits, a frostbitten cabbage leaf, and a pinch of thyme. You sip it slowly, savoring the faint warmth. You also gnaw on a dried apple from your secret stash, its tartness a faint echo of autumn. You joke to yourself, "Fancy feast tonight, your majesty." Humor's thin, but it keeps despair at bay. You forage when you can, though the woods are bleak. You find a few pine cones, their seeds edible if you roast them, and some frozen berries, sour but filling. The Lord's forest is still off-limits, but you're past caring about his laws. You dodge the gamekeeper's patrols, heart-pounding, and snag a fallen branch for kindling. You mutter, "Tax this, you manor hog," as you haul it home. Every stick feels like a small victory. The village pulls together, barely. You share a fire with the baker one night, pooling your wood to save fuel. You trade a hen's egg for a spare flint, a lifesaver when your own sparks fail. Old Meg's still hoarding, though, and you catch her sneaking off with a bundle of straw. You don't snitch. She's surviving, same as you. You just wish she'd share. You think of that clay pot you hid in the plague days, and wonder if she's got her own secrets buried. The cold tests your spirit. The church offers no warmth. The chapel's colder than your hut, and the priest's sermons about endurance feel hollow when your stomach's empty. You still pray, clutching Gran's straw cross, but it's more habit than hope. You hear of a hermit who claims fasting through winter brings divine favor. You're already half-starved, so you snort, "Guess I'm holy enough." By night, you curl up by the fire's dying glow, the wind howling like a wolf. You tuck the hens close, not quite cuddling, but their faint warmth helps. You chew a pine seed, its bitter crunch a reminder you're still here. You think of the frost, the berries, the baker's flint. Winter's brutal, but you're tougher. You whisper, "Keep burning," to the fire, to yourself. The cold hasn't claimed you yet. You're still battling winter's icy grip, your breath a frosty cloud, but now a new spark flickers in the village. Revolt. The Lord's demands, more grain, more labor, have pushed you and your neighbors to the edge. Whispers of rebellion hum in the alehouse, and you're weighing whether to join the fire or stay safe. It's a dangerous gamble, and you're no hero, but the idea of striking back feels like a warm coal in your chest. You trudge through the snow to the Lord's fields, your hands numb from swinging a flail. The bailiff's there, barking orders, his whip coiled like a snake. You hand over a sack of barley, half your week's food, knowing it'll fatten his master's hogs while you starve. A mainstream fact burns. Peasant uprisings, like the 1381 Peasants' Revolt in England, often flared from crushing taxes and hunger. You're not there yet, but you feel the same rage simmering. The baker mutters about meeting tonight, and your ears perk up. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some rebels in past uprisings smear their faces with soot to hide their identities, calling themselves the Blackened. You picture yourself with a sooty grin, torch in hand, and it's half thrilling, half terrifying. You joke to yourself, "Black face, black heart, Lord's in trouble now." Historians still argue whether these revolts were doomed outbursts or seeds of change. You just wonder if you'd survive the fight. The alehouse is where it brews. After dark, you slip in, the air thick with sweat and defiance. The tanner, a burly man with a scar, talks of burning the manor's records, those scrolls that bind you to the land. You nod, heart-pounding. You've dodged the Lord's rules before, hiding turnips, shorting ties, but this is bigger. You suggest stealing the bailiff's horse to slow their response. The others laugh, and you feel a rush, like you're not just a serf tonight. You weigh the risks. Revolt could win you freedom, or it could end with your head on a pike. You've seen the Lord's men crush troublemakers. A thief hanged last year, his body left swinging as a warning. You rub Grand Strawcross, tore between fear and fury. You mutter, "If I die, at least I'll spit in their faces first." It's bravado, but it steadies you. The village splits. Some, like old Meg, hiss at rebellion suicide. Others, like the tanner, are ready to march. You look for cracks to exploit. The Lord's garrison is thin. Plague and desertion have cut their numbers. You share this with the group, suggesting a night raid when the guards are drunk. You've learned from famine and plague. Hit where they're weak. You also recall that buried sack of turnips from winter. You could dig it up to feed the rebels. It's not much, but it's yours to give. The church complicates things. The priest preaches obedience, calling revolt a sin, but you've seen him dine at the manor. You spread a rumor that he's hoarding alms, hoping to sway the pious to your side. You're not proud, but you're desperate. You think of that penny you buried by the yew tree for luck. Maybe it's time to dig it up for courage. You lean on the village's pulse. The baker's wife, fierce despite her limp, offers to hide weapons, pitchforks, sickles. In her oven, you volunteer to scout the manor's walls, noting the weak spots. You're no soldier, but you're learning fast. You joke with the tanner. "If we win, I'm taxing the Lord's wine." He snorts, and the shared laugh feels like armor. By night, you huddle in your hut, the fire low, the wind rattling the walls. You chew a crust of pottage soap bread, your mind racing. Revolt could change everything, or end you. You think of the tanner's scar, the baker's wife, that horse you might steal. You're scared, but you're angry too. You whisper, "One spark's enough," clutching Grand's cross. The Lord's still king, but you're not bowing tonight. You're still wrestling with the lure of revolt, the idea of fighting back against the Lord's iron grip burning in your chest. But now you turn to something quieter, stronger, the village itself. The community, battered by plague, famine, and greed, is your hidden lifeline. It's not just shared labor or whispered plots. It's the unspoken bonds, the small acts of trust that keep you going. You're learning that survival isn't just about your own cunning. It's about leaning on those around you, flaws and all. You wake to the cluck of your hens, a faint reminder of normalcy. The village is stirring, smoke curling from chimneys, and you head to the common field where the day's work waits. A mainstream fact anchors you. Medieval villages often relied on communal labor, pooling resources to plow fields or repair roofs, especially after crises like plague. You feel it today, joining neighbors to mend a fence the Lord's men won't touch. Your hands blister, but the shared sweat feels like a promise. You're not alone. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some villages held ale feasts where everyone chipped in grain to brew a giant batch of beer, drunk together to seal bonds. You join one tonight, sipping watery ale in the baker's yard. It's not fancy, but the laughter, gruff, tired, real, warms you more than the drink. You joke, "This ale's so weak, it's just angry water." The tanner snorts, and you feel rooted, like you belong. Historians still argue whether these feasts built trust or just drowned misery. You think it's both, and you're grateful for it. You see the village's strength in small things. The blacksmith's widow, tough as old leather, shares a handful of nails to fix your door. You repay her with a bundle of time from your patch. No questions asked. You also help the miller's boy haul water when his arm's too weak from a fever. He mumbles thanks, and you nod, remembering how you slipped bread to Agnes's family during the plague. It's not charity, it's survival, a web of favors holding you all up, but it's not all harmony. Old Meg's still hoarding, her sharp eyes guarding her stash. You catch her bartering a secret sack of grain for a neighbor's wool, and you bite your tongue. You got your own hidden turnips. After all, you mutter, "Live and let live, you old crow," and move on. There's tension, too, over the revolt talk. The baker's wife is all in, but others, like the shepherd, want no part, fearing the Lord's wrath. You stay quiet, not ready to pick a side. You lean on shared rituals. At the church's harvest blessing, you stand shoulder to shoulder with neighbors, your voices blending in a hymn. The priest's sermon grates, but the moment binds you. You also join the women weaving rush mats by the river, swapping stories of Grand's old tricks, like that garlic paste you still use. You laugh, saying, "Smell like a demon, but I'm still here." Their chuckles feel like a shield against the world. The village teaches you, too. The tanner shows you how to patch your shoes with boiled leather scraps, saving you from frostbite. You share your trick of boiling pine cones for seeds, and he tries it, grinning at the gritty taste. You're no scholar, but you're all learning, piecing together survival like a quilt. You think of that clay pot you hid during famine, now share with a miller's boy. It's less about trust, more about need. The Lord's shadow lingers. His bailiff rides through, demanding extra labor for a new barn. You grumble but go, knowing the village will cover your plot while you're gone. It's unspoken, but it's there. You smirk. Thinking of the revolt whispers, maybe the community's strength could fuel that fire. For now, you're just glad to have a fire to come home to. By night, you sit by your hearth, the hens clucking softly. You chew a crust from the ale feast, its faint maltiness a comfort. You think of the widow's nails, the tanner's leather, the hymn's echo. The village is your backbone, cracked but unbowed. You whisper, "We're still here," clutching Grand's straw cross. The world's brutal, but together, you're tougher. You're still drawing strength from the village's quiet bonds, but now the old enemy creeps back. The plague. A second wave slinks into your world. Not as loud as the first, but just as deadly. Whispers of sickness from nearby towns turn to grim reality. Coughing neighbors, fresh graves. You thought you'd outsmarted this beast, but it's back, and you're digging deep to survive its grim toll. You wake to a neighbor's wail. Another child gone. The village feels haunted, the air heavy with fear and the faint reek of decay. You check your hut for rats, remembering how they spread the first plague, and sprinkle crushed mint to mask the dread. A mainstream fact hits hard. Later plague waves, like those in the 1360s, often killed fewer but struck harder at children and the weak, thinning villages already on their knees. You see it in the empty market square, where only a few barter, their eyes hollow. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some villagers wore amulets of toad bones, believing they'd suck up the plague's poison. You hear of a peddler selling them, and though you scoff, you tie a small stone from Grand's herb patch around your neck. It's not a toad, but it's something to hold on to. You mutter, "Better than unicorn horn, you old fraud." Historians still argue whether these talismans were pure superstition or a way to cope with terror. You just want to keep breathing. You dust off old tricks. You boil your water, scrub your hands raw, and avoid the sick like they're cursed. You also revive the rosemary sprig in your shirt, its sharp scent a faint shield. You think of that vinegar you choked down during the first wave. Maybe it's worth another try. You sip it, wincing, and joke, "If the plague doesn't get me, this'll burn my soul out." It's not funny, but it keeps you moving. The village tightens its defenses. The elders, grayer now, order another quarantine hut built, and you help, hauling logs despite your aching arms. You also join the night watch again, patrolling with a sharpened stick. One night, you turn away a feverish stranger, his eyes pleading. It twists your gut, but you got your own to protect. You think of Agnes, that kid you fed bread to, now long gone. You whisper, "Not again," and grip your stick tighter. Food's a problem. Again, with fields neglected and hands too sick to work, you're barley sparse. You stretch your pottage with extra weeds, grimacing at the bitter grit. You also dig up that last sack of turnips you buried, now soft but edible. You share a few with a miller's boy, who's coughing but still alive. You're no saint, but you remember his water hauling help. You smirk, thinking of old Meg. She'd probably eat dirt before sharing. The church offers prayers, but little else. The priest sprinkles holy water, claiming it will save the faithful. But you've seen graves swallow the devout. You still kneel in the chapel, clutching Grand's straw cross, but your prayers are blunt. Keep us alive, or at least make it quick. You hear of a monk who claimed flagellation, whipping yourself, wards off plague. You pass, muttering, "I'm bruised enough, thanks." You lean on the village, though it's fraying. The baker's wife, still fierce, organizes a communal stew, pooling what little everyone has. You toss in a handful of pine seeds, earning a nod, but fear splits you apart. 2. Some neighbors bar their doors, hoarding what they've got. You don't blame them, but you miss the ale feast warmth. You try a new trick, rubbing garlic on your doorframe, hoping it repels more than just sickness. By night, you huddle by your fire, the wind carrying distant coughs. You chew a shriveled turnip. Its taste like defeat. You think of the quarantine hut, the stone amulet, the miller's boy. The plague's a thief, stealing hope, but you're still here, stubborn as ever. You whisper, "Not yet," rubbing Grand's cross. The darkness presses in, but you're not done fighting. You're still standing. The plague's second wave of grim shadow you somehow dodged, but now a new chance emerges from the chaos. The Lord's power, once ironclad, is wobbling. Plague and famine have thinned his workforce, and he's desperate. You sense an opening, a rare moment to bargain for better terms, to claw back a sliver of control. It's a risky dance, but you're ready to step carefully, using the manor's weakness to ease your own burdens. You wake to a village quieter than ever, the fields half empty. The Lord's men are fewer. 2, some dead, some fled. You hear the bailiff's horn, weaker now, calling you to work his land, but you notice his eyes, nervous, not commanding. A mainstream fact sharpens your focus. After the Black Death, labor shortages gave peasants leverage, leading to higher wages and lighter feudal burdens in some regions. You feel it today, standing taller as you hand over a meager tithe, knowing he needs you more than you need him. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some peasants lost their lord's tools during shortages, claiming they broke, to delay work and force better deals. You try it, hiding a flail in the woods and shrugging when the steward asks. He grumbles but doesn't push. You're one of the few still working. You smirk, muttering, "Find it yourself, you lazy vulture." Historians still argue whether these acts were calculated resistance or just survival's chaos. You call it strategy. You test the waters. At the Lord's court, you join neighbors to demand a lower tithe, citing the barren fields. You speak up, heart pounding, saying your hens are laying less, half true, but you've hidden a few eggs. The Lord, pale and twitchy, agrees to take only a fifth of your grain this month. It's a small win, but it feels like stealing his crown. You share a nod with the tanner, your old revolt talk buddy, and whisper, "We're not serfs today." The village seizes a moment. The baker's wife, sharp as ever, organizes a group to refuse extra labor unless the Lord provides bread. You join, standing firm when the bailiff blusters. He backs down, sending a loaf per worker, a crusty miracle. You chew yours slowly, savoring the rebellion's taste. You joke, "This bread's got Lord's tears in it." The baker's wife laughs, and you feel the village's pulse, stronger now. You push further. You forget to report a new lamb, claiming it died at birth, and barter its wool in secret. You also revive that old trick of mixing chaff with the tide grain, making it look heavier. The steward's too harried to notice, and you stash the saved barley in your clay pot. Yes, that pot, still your secret from famine days. You think of Grand's rune on your spade, how it spooked the bailiff once. Maybe you'll carve another. The church, as always, complicates things. The priest, cozy with the Lord, preaches patience, but you've heard he's sure on alms, too. You spread a rumor that his wine's watered down, hoping to nudge him off his high horse. It's petty, but you're done bowing. You still pray, rubbing Grand's straw cross, asking for cunning, not miracles. You mutter, "God, just keep the bailiff blind." You lean on village allies. The miller's boy, now stronger, helps you hide a sack of turnips in his shed, repayment for your plague-time generosity. You trade a bundle of time for the blacksmith's widow's spare knife, perfect for secret foraging. The revolt whispers have faded, but this bargaining feels like its quieter cousin. Less fire, more leverage. You're no leader, but you're learning fast. By night, you sit by your fire, the air sharp with frost return. You nibble a stolen egg, its richness a quiet triumph. You think of the lowered tithe, the baker's bread, that hidden lamb. The Lord still above you, but his throne's creaking. You're bargaining, not begging, and it's a start. You whisper, keep pushing, clutching Grand's cross. The manor's desperate, and you're not the serf you were. You're still savoring the small victories from bargaining with a weakened lord, but now nature throws another wild card your way. Floods, droughts, and prowling wolves don't care about your deals or your grit. They're relentless, reshaping your world with no mercy. You're used to fighting human foes, but this is different. A raw, untamed force that tests every trick you've learned. You're scrambling to adapt, hoping to outlast the land's cruel whims. You wake to a sky heavy with rain, the river already swelling past its banks. Your barley patch is a muddy swamp, stalks drowning where they stand. A mainstream fact hits like a stone. Extreme weather in the 14th century, like the Great Famine's wet years, ruined crops and spiked starvation across Europe. You feel it now, wading through ankle-deep muck to salvage what you can. Your boots squelch, and you curse the clouds, knowing hunger's circling again. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some villagers blamed witches for bad weather, tossing charms into rivers to break their spells. You hear old Meg muttering about a hex storm, and though you scoff, you toss a sprig of thyme into the water, just in case. You mutter, take that, you soggy witch. Historians still argue whether these rituals were fear-driven or a way to rally communities against despair. You just want your field to dry out. You pivot fast. The floods wrecked your crops, so you focus on foraging. You trek to higher ground, where the woods offer soggy mushrooms and wild leeks. A wolf's howl stops you cold. Real ones, not the tanner's tall tales. You clutch your knife, that bartered blade from the blacksmith's widow, and hurry back. You think of Grand's garlic paste, how it scared off more than plague. Maybe it'd spook a wolf. You chuckle, smell me and run, furry. Droughts hit other years, and you've learned from it. You recall a dry spell when you dug a shallow well near the riverbed, catching trickles the sun didn't steal. You check it now, relieved to find it still flowing despite the flood. You haul water to your hut, boiling it like you did in plague times. You also save seeds from your drowned barley, drying them by the fire. You'll replant when the ground forgives you. Wolves are a new menace. With fields empty and game scarce, they're bold, snatching hens and prowling closer. You reinforce your pen with stones, remembering the village's shared fence-mending days. You also join a night watch, not for plague but for beasts, wielding a torch and that sharpened stick from quarantine patrols. One night, you scare off a shadow with glowing eyes, heart-hammering. You joke to the tanner. Think of one of my pottage? He grins, but you both know it's no game. The village rallies, sort of. The baker's wife organizes a group to clear debris from the flooded mill, saving its grindstone. You pitch in, trading a handful of leeks for her spare flour. Old Meg's no help, hoarding her dry firewood while others shiver. You bite your tongue. She's surviving, same as you. You think of that clay pot, now empty but a reminder of your own secrets. You're all flawed, but you're all here. The church offers prayers for calm skies, but the priest's dry robes mock your soaked tunic. You kneel anyway, rubbing Grand's straw cross, asking for a break. You hear of a hermit who claims dancing in the rain pleases God. You're not that desperate, but you mutter, keep the wolves away and I'll consider it. Fate's a comfort, even if it's soggy. By night, you huddle by your fire, the rain drumming your roof. You chew a roasted leek, its sharpness a small defiance. You think of the well, the torch, that time in the river. Nature's a beast, but you're still standing, knife in hand, seeds in pocket. You whisper, try harder, world, clutching Grand's cross. The flood's not your master. Not yet. You're still here, outlasting floods, wolves, and nature's brutal whims. Your boots caked with the mud of 1,000 battles. Now, as the seasons turn, you pause to reflect on what's kept you alive. Not just cunning or luck, but a stubborn, gritty spirit that defines you and your village. The plagues, famines, and lords have tried to break you, but you're still standing, a testament to the peasants' enduring will to survive. This is your legacy, woven from struggle and defiance, and it's time to trace its threads. You wake to a rare, clear morning. The air crisp, the village stirring with cautious hope. Your barley patch, battered but replanted, shows green shoots, small, but yours. A mainstream fact grounds you. Medieval peasants, despite crushing odds, laid the foundation for modern agriculture and community resilience, their survival shaping centuries. You feel it, hoeing your plot, each swing a quiet claim to life. You're not just feeding yourself. You're building something that outlasts you. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some peasants carve tally sticks, notching them to track debts or days survived, a private rebellion against oblivion. You pull out a splinter wood and notch it, one for every season you've endured. You grin, muttering, "Take that, death." Historians still argue whether these sticks were practical or symbolic acts of hope. You think it's both a way to say, "I was here." You walk the village, seeing its scars and strengths. The baker's wife, limping but fierce, tend her oven, her bread a gift to the hungry. The tanner, scarred and gruff, sharpens his tools, ready for whatever comes. Even old Meg, hoarding as always, is part of this. Her stubbornness mirrors your own. You've shared pottage, mended fences, faced wolves together. You think of that ale feast, its weak beer and warm laughter. You're not just survivors, you're a people. Your tricks have become legend. That clay pot, hidden through famine and plague, is empty now, but its memory lives in every secret stash you've buried. You recall the rosemary sprig, the garlic paste, grand straw cross, small talismans of defiance. You've dodged lured with chaff-filled tides, bargained for lighter burdens, and scared off wolves with a torch. You joke, "I'm half peasant, half fox." The tanner would laugh, and you wish you were here to hear it. The Lord's manor still looms, but it's less a vulture now. You're bargaining, those lowered tides, that lost flail, cracked as armor. The church, too, feels smaller. You pray, but it's your own grit, not the priest's holy water, that's kept you alive. You think of that penny you buried by the yew tree, a child's hope. Maybe you'll dig it up someday, a relic of who you were. You've changed. The fear that once choked you, plague stench, famine's ache, has hardened into resolve. You've lost much, Agnes, neighbors, pieces of your heart. But you've gained, too. The miller's boy's shy grin, the baker's wife's nod, your own notched stick. You're not just surviving, you're living, claiming each dawn with a whispered, "Still here." You rub Grand's cross, its straw worn but unbroken. Like you, the future's uncertain. Plague may return, lords may tighten their grip, floods may rise. But you're ready, armed with a village's wisdom and your own fire. You think of Gran, her stories of lean years endured. You're her heir, carving your own tale into the earth. You smirk, "Try me, world, I'm tougher than your worst." As the sun dips, you sit by your fire, its glow soft against the gathering dusk. The village hums. Children laugh, a dog barks, life persists. You chew a crust of bread, its warmth a quiet triumph. The stars emerge, steady and distant, like the spirit that's carried you through. Your notched stick lies beside you, a map of your survival. Now, let your eyes grow heavy, the fire's crackle fading to a gentle hum. The village rests, its heartbeat slow and sure, cradling you in its weathered arms. You fought, loved, endured. Your stories etched in the soil, the smoke, the stars. Drift now, carried by the soft rhythm of a world that couldn't break you. Sleep, deep, dreamer, wrapped in the warmth of your own unbreakable will. Sweet dreams.